What's up, folks? We're looking at the first inaugural week of the new Apocalypse Mode rewards. As you can see, there's a new week has just started here, and I sat on every single possible reward from all of the tiers all the way through, up to that 2K point where you get the max rewards for each individual week. Just to talk a little bit about timeline, to clear the entire Apocalypse Mode rewards for the week took me maybe a day and a half, give or take. I played it pretty aggressively because it was new, it was fun, it was exciting, and I kind of wanted to see how realistic it was to do it very, very quickly. You could easily sit down and grind through it in a day. It's about on par with like a 30-round campaign, give or take, although you get a lot more variety in that because you can play anything in your entire collection and you could play against anything in your entire collection. So it definitely doesn't feel as repetitive as those. So it was quick and easy to do. I did end up using all 6 factions roughly equally. I believe each one got to like 280 or so. But then, of course, I did have some favorites. I just kept playing because I was really having a good time with those decks. Top of that list was probably the full-on Space Wolves deck that was Logan Grimnar and all Space Wolves. That was a lot of fun. Um, and then trying to remember what else, but we'll start there. The whole point of this, though, is to sit down and actually get the entire stack of rewards for 1 week, see what it looks like. So you got your, I was just over 2,000. I managed to stop myself right there. There is no leaderboard in Apocalypse Mode. It's just whether you get to the top or not, which is kind of nice. Takes a lot of pressure off. And we'll talk more about the new competitive scoring system at the end of this. So I got 50 plasma, which is that by itself is not bad. 10 card packs, 1 guaranteed legendary, and 2 guaranteed epics. Again, this is for a week. And you usually get, I don't, I I'm having trouble wrapping my head around exactly what this is equivalent to, but it's good rewards considering the effort put into playing it and how much fun it was to get there. So let's see how it comes out here. We got 5 pages of rewards. Got our plasma, a bunch of commons, a bunch more commons, and totally random rewards. I'm seeing very few duplicate copies, which is nice. So it means it is truly 5 pages of cards. Seeing some more duplicates there. We got into the rares and epics very quickly. So interesting. All right, so I'm about to get my guaranteed legendary, and it's going to be a guaranteed legendary wild, which is actually pretty exciting. And this is a brand new epic, so that's a great one to get. This guy's low level, so it's nice to have some more of those. Yeah, level 2. Yeah, so it looks like a legendary wild card. Let's see if it's wild wild. It's not, it's chaos, which is almost better. Yeah, so there we go. That was pretty decent rewards. Again, that was for 1 week, and I get to do it all again. And this time I'm probably going to accept the rewards as I go through it. It's not going to be as exciting as waiting, but it'll be nice to kind of get that trickle as I'm playing through those games. We'll join that, take another look at the reward tiers, see if it's changed. I did find, oh, there's my Swarm Lord. That's interesting. I did find that some of the factions that I play the most were actually hard to fill up to 400 points with a competitive build, particularly some of my factions that are my top factions. So Ildari was particularly challenging because all of my expensive cards are very low level. So I was usually leaving like 20 or 30 points on the table unless I was running like full-on Eldrad, who was able to fill that, I think. Let's see how that deck looked. Yeah, so I got 26 points left on the table with all of the main gnarly psychers I wanted to put in there. So it was a little bit tough to fill that full 400 points, but this deck is perfectly capable of chainsawing through everything in the ladder. In terms of play, I did kind of expect it to get a little bit more difficult later on, since there's so little distance between a low-ranked player and a high-ranked player, though, it's really hard for matchmaking to do any kind of reasonable balance there. So I would expect it to be very approachable for any player levels, and for the players who have scarier collections, it's going to be on the easier side. But yeah, there was this one, and then let's take a look at that Space Wolf one I mentioned too. I want to try Votann this week and see if we can do it. I won't get anywhere close to the 400 deck points, but should be able to still get through the victories, even against bigger, scarier decks. Obviously, the Primarchs are absolutely top-notch in this mode. Where are you, Logan? There you are. Whole Santa. Thematic for the season. Yeah, so I went as much Space Wolves as I could. I've got the melee Medicae in there, and then, of course, this guy to fill points to be another melee puncher. But going this hard on Space Wolves was a lot of fun, and Logan's ability is really, really good at this mode, and being able to pack in this many heavy hitters was also really nice for this mode. So that was pretty cool. All right, so that's that. We're going to go ahead and touch on the campaign scoring changes real quick, just to go ahead and make sure we cover that. So we're talking about what you get in turn. I'll actually play a battle here real quick. Ooh, it's significantly harder than normal, is it? We're going to do my classic on Va build where I filter by wounds from highest to lowest. Pick on Va. See what else we got. Ooh, and I don't go for my lowest level cards there. We've got 400 deck points though, so let's go ahead and cheese this sucker up. This guy doesn't have melee. No. Oh yeah, we want that. Yeah, we might as well put the big stuff in here. Not that one. All right, that very quickly filled up the 400. Okay, so we'll put this guy in here because he's a classic. I put some crude in there. Starting to get my crude up to high level, so it's fun to bust them out, especially in an Onva heavily melee themed deck. Oh, and I love the new Crutox. This is really cool to see this. I need to get a lot of levels into this thing, but love to see it. At the price point, it's nice and cheap. Throw a Shaper in there. Oh god, no we won't. No, we will not throw a level 2 Shaper in there. And then we're getting to the bottom pool of the hit points, so we got to do this quick. I'm taking too long. I'll throw you in there, and then 22. Yeah, that'll work. Just to round out points. I shouldn't even play those. But yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and read out the changes to the campaign mode while we're doing this. So let's see. So starting next Monday, which was this past Monday, we're introducing a new scoring system for campaigns that fundamentally reworks the existing victory points model. And that is how many points you earn per round and how that impacts who is the leader of the campaign and who gets the top level rewards of that campaign. And we'll look at those once I get out of this. This change aims to address long-standing issues with fairness, clarity, and strategy while maintaining a performance-based tie-breaking mechanic. Because I've been surprised in my time of Warhammer combat cards, but the laddering, perceived unfairness in the laddering is one of the single most common pain points for players in this game. People really, 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 really want to win, want to understand the system, and want to make sure it works in a way that I don't know, works in kind of a way that they expect to be impartial. And there's a lot of uh, high emotions around this, which, understandable. You're putting time into this. You're probably putting money into this. You do want some clarity and to make sure the system works. But free reward, but we're talking about the tier rewards in the campaign itself. And that is going to be the ladder prizes here. Let's see. And there were a couple issues with the old scoring system in that, ooh, this is a clan one. This isn't really going to demonstrate it very well, but yeah, so normally you've got a player position that goes up into the top 10, and the top tiers of rewards are usually legendary or epic cards, very rare, like very powerful ones, that you only get if you're in the very top level of players who play. But there were a couple issues. So the most recent previous campaign system, it was weighted based on the number of hit points you had left to play, like the number of hit points you had left on the table and then left in your deck. And it also was heavily based around a tie system. So if you got to 400 points, if you were the first person to get to 400 points, you would have the rank appropriate to 400 points. If you were the second, you would be ranked below the person who got it first. So there was that like lightning fast speed where you could just miss the boat on the upper ranks if you weren't the first person to score through it. So there's a lot of incentive to take very slow defensive decks with a ton of Medicae that took forever to play and just rush the top of the ladder as quickly as possible. And then most players, even fairly experienced players like Shinto Bean dropped this the other day too, you would just basically never ever get the upper tier rewards because there was just no chance. So let's see. The original campaign scoring system often resulted in tied scores, with rank determined by who logged the score first. This was unfair to players with limited availability or unfavorable time zones. Yeah. The current VP system was introduced to prioritize performance rather than a binary win or lose outcome, but it had its own challenges. Number one, complexity. It is always tricky to balance this in a way that is functional, but also can adapt to all the different kind of situations that may come up without getting just crazy complicated. You want to make sure that players understand what they're going into, can build to the system without it being too much. The previous system with hit points, you were really, really heavily favored for building specifically to the campaign system. So that is always tricky. But so scoring formula was intricate and hard for players to understand or predict. Breaking down how scores were calculated after a match was equally difficult. There's also strategy limitations. The emphasis on factors like remaining wounds pushed players, and I think I just mentioned this, pushed players towards slow defensive builds. These were often less enjoyable and overly reliant on high-level cards to maximize points, because high-level cards, one of the single biggest markers between a low and a high-level card is the number of hit points. And then randomness was the third. Variability in opponent decks introduced a significant element of chance, where a lot of players were very upset about losing to an unlucky draw or an unlucky deploy. But also, you think about a player deck, like if you have a warlord like Supreme Commander Abaddon or Supreme Commander Vol, you just don't want to run them in that because their ability is random. And it's super fun and thematic and like very cool in the table, but it's something you would never touch in a campaign because you're not sure if it's going to hurt your overall score. Um, yeah, then the new scoring system. To resolve these issues, we've reimagined the campaign scoring to be simpler, fairer, and more flexible. The new system rewards performance. I'll play a little bit more here. I want to stop on the screen in a second. While giving players greater freedom to approach matches their way. Here's the formula. And you've got victory points equals level. That is the level you clear. Where right now you can see in this campaign I'm on level 3. Plus 21 minus the turns taken. Oh, so the faster you beat the opposing deck, the better the benefit. So if you're just like wiping cards from your first turn, that'll give you an edge. Minimum of 0, so that can't go below 0. And then plus your number of cards remaining. So 100 points per level cleared. Yeah, your primary score is tied directly to progress, making victory the most important factor. Then up to 20 bonus points for speed. So if you have a very powerful deck that clears the opposing deck quickly, which is the exact opposite of the old system, you earn 1 point for each turn saved, calculated as 21 minus the total turns taken by both you and the AI. So yeah, okay. And then up to 9 bonus points for surviving cards. Gain 1 point for each card, including your warlord, still in play at the end of the match. And this is all really good. So obviously the level cleared is one of the top ways to kind of define who wins. The efficiency with which you do it is a nice double balance there where it's not totally random. It does encourage a certain kind of deck building, but it encourages faster and sometimes high risk deck building, but also is a nice metric for the relative power of your cards. So if you have very powerful cards, they're more likely to clear opposing cards more quickly in fewer turns. So that is, I didn't stop on the score screen. We'll take a look at that in a second. So that makes sense. And then I like the bonus for surviving cards, similar reasons. It still does, so this is, I like this design because it's most tied to progression, again with that points per level cleared. So if you're clearing higher levels, you do better. It is geared towards veteran players because it does give you the bonus for surviving cards still, but then also it gives you a very specific deck building challenge where you're trying to clear these things quickly because it does give you that bonus for completing this in fewer turns. I really like this. It's a nice, elegant way to balance it out in a simple formula. And now let's see how this addresses ties. What's improved? All right, number 1, victory takes center stage. Unlike the previous system, bonus points can never outweigh the base score from clearing levels. Winning the match is the primary goal, ensuring the focus remains on progressing as far as possible. Very nice. Okay, instead of just maxing out hit points on the board at the end of a game. Simplified scoring. The core principles of the old system, rewarding damage dealt and survivability, are preserved, but simplified into an intuitive formula. Players can now see how their actions translate into points without needing a calculator. Very nice. Yeah, that's a fair point. Number 3, efficiency or turn efficiency adds depth. Yeah, so the turns taken bonus incentivizes faster matches, encouraging offensive strategies, high initiative decks, which can end game sooner and gain renewed strategic value. Also, typically faster decks or faster cards don't have as many hit points and can be a little bit more pricey. So you may actually be looking at a balance between bonus points for moving quickly and bonus points for having high hit point survivable cards, and the two actively compete against each other, which I really like that depth there. Yeah, cards remaining bonus adds a layer of strategy. Yes, sorry, this is the last one. Strategic deck building. The cards remaining bonus adds a layer of strategy to deck construction. Bringing a full deck offers more potential points, but the risk of losing cards, and therefore points, forces careful consideration of balance and synergy. Because if you're taking the full, 8 bodyguards, probably 4 of them are squishy filler cards that are gonna hurt your score, even if they're metacase that are gonna beef up their surviving cards on the board and keep your stuff punching hard. By contrast, you could run a 4 to 5 card deck where it's all your toughest, most punchy cards. That's high risk, but you will have more cards left alive in the end and fewer cards lost. So that is interesting. All right. Why this matters. this new scoring fix. Oh, and I wanted to talk about this. So I just cleared level 5, if I'm not mistaken. I cleared level 4. I'm into level 5, and then looking at the bonus. 20 points for speed, I didn't do that fast, and then up to 9 points for surviving cards. So most all my deck was surviving, took a bunch of turns, so this is what it balances out to for clearing that round 4. So as you can see, the level cleared is by far the highest modifier, and then the additional part will help, especially over the course of the campaign, but it won't necessarily turn the number on its head. What's improved? Number 1, victory takes center stage. Appreciate that. Unlike the previous system, bonus points can never outweigh the base score from clearing levels. Yeah, that's a nice rebalance. I'll just keep doing this while we're talking. Winning the match is the primary goal, ensuring the focus remains on progressing as far as possible. And that is really where the player skill hits card level, and you get a very challenging point to where the leaderboard is an actual earned leaderboard. Because the upper tiers of these campaigns is pretty brutal. Once you get past, I think, level 18, get into level 20, that's where it starts to get really, really hard, at least for me. And that's just kind of a mark of what level I'm at, but still. Yeah. And then we're looking at simplified scoring. The core principles of the old system, rewarding damage dealt and survivability, are preserved, but simplified into an intuitive formula. Players can now see how their actions translate into points without needing a calculator. So you can see in every single turn, you would be prioritizing keeping your cards alive, but also watching their turn counter. So you might make aggressive plays to save a turn or two at the expense of cards in your deck. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, this is Manifest Nightmare. I'm going to lose some cards. Not as many as I thought. Okay. And then turn efficiency adds blah, 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 and yes. Turn efficiency adds depth. The turns taken bonus incentivizes faster matches, encouraging offensive strategies. Offensive strategies, high initiative decks, which can end game sooner and gain renewed strategic value. Did I read this? We'll do it again. Number 4 is that strategic deck building is the cards remaining bonus adds a layer of strategy to deck construction. Yeah, no, we already talked about that. Okay. Why this matters. This new scoring system fixes the randomness and complexity of the old model while making campaigns more engaging. Even earlier levels, which had become trivial for top players, now offer interesting decisions. How do you maximize speed, survivability, and level progression simultaneously? Because the top players who really have played this a lot are competing for those leaderboard slots very aggressively, and they like to win. So, understandably, so this is definitely a consideration. Whether you prefer fast, aggressive builds or balanced decks with a touch of defense, the scoring system is flexible enough to reward your unique player's play style. I like that, and it is going to be challenging outside of extremely high-level cards to get both these card surviving bonus and the fast turn bonus. Because if you have a thinner deck, chances are it's slower. If you have a thicker deck, chances are it could be faster, but you're going to lose more of those cards. What's next? We're confident this update will make campaigns more rewarding and enjoyable for everyone. As always, we're eager to hear your feedback once you've had a chance to try it out. Let us know what you think, and good luck conquering the updated campaigns. Now, this does not mention how it deals with ties. So it's based on raw points. So if you have the same points as someone else, you may end up in the exact same rank still. I didn't see anything about that. But because of the variability in the reward, it's going to be a lot harder to game the system and get maximum possible value. What we saw before from the hit point system, where it was pure hit points, mostly, is there was a lot of math going into it of like, okay, what are the highest hit point cards? What's the maximum number of Medicae? What's the trait that'll heal them the most? How do I get the highest possible points every single round? And with this new version, it's going to be a lot harder to not only math that out, but even accomplish it, because randomness does still play some of a factor as you play. So yeah, we should see a lot wider range between the top scoring victory points of players, even though there is still kind of a consistent metric for victory points. So that's cool. I like that. Since this change, I haven't played the campaigns much. We had Apocalypse mode. We have a bunch of campaigns that I was trying to just not play because they are factions that are not maybe my main faction. And sometimes there can be a lot of back-to-back campaigns that you want to keep playing. So when there's a chance to take a break and skip some, I usually try to. But so like a Tau campaign, for example, Tau versus Necrons are my 2 rock bottom lowest priority factions. I enjoy them, but they're not ones I really put the time into mastering necessarily. So this was an easy one to give a skip, but I did notice now that it's a clan event, and I do really want to do those. So here we are. The next one's a Votan one, so we're definitely going to have to do that. Yeah, I'll do one more here, just to go ahead and see it. Where I was going with that whole talking about the campaigns is I very rarely compete to a high enough level to actually go for the top level rewards of campaigns, in part because the last two scoring systems I've been under, I was basically guaranteed to never get them. So it wasn't really worth the time to really go ham on trying to get those maximum victory points because I just wasn't going to get anywhere close. With this, I might. I've hit top 10% a few times, but that's where I've capped out in campaigns, in part because they're very competitive, in part because I don't necessarily consider them my like top competition thing, again, because of how that tiering works and how frequent they can be. And there, like deciding to ready for a turn, like that's a huge decision to make because you give up a turn of not clearing opposing cards and kind of take the slow route, but it may keep your cards alive for another turn to give you the survivability bonus. So that is, I already like that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll play some more campaigns and kind of get a sense. I'm curious to hear feedback from the players that have played campaigns a little bit more consistently to see what they think about the changes too, because they'll be more able to really judge it than I am necessarily. Whew, that's a lot of melee. All right, yeah, so that's cool. That's it. We'll keep it there. Should I play one bonus Armored Apocalypse game? We'll play one bonus Apocalypse game. We'll do it. Just one. Just one. And I'm going to do a faction I did not do in the recording last time. Let's see. Somebody in my clan mentioned that Trazen, always one of the most powerful warlords in the game, hits differently in Apocalypse, as in he's just better. Where are you, buddy? I went right by him. And my Trazen's kind of low level, so that does balance out a little bit. And just to go ahead and talk about it, one of the things that I want to, we know range, we're just going to nuke stuff. One of the things that I want to cover soon is what makes a bad Warhammer Combat Cards deck. That isn't something I've necessarily covered, and that's another lens to look at good decks, is by starting by looking at bad decks to see what the difference is between the two, and kind of talk through why you care, why you would ever actually play a bad deck, and dig a little bit into more into that. So I'm planning the content right now. Pretty excited for how it's going to come out. 58, eh? Yeah, I guess you're in there. Level 6. When did you get to be level 6? That's actually respectable. Although I need that one more to really get him out there. This again should be a very quick, easy game. We'll see now that I've said that. Call 400-point call deck, gross. And call, since he's been nerfed, I've talked about this a lot. We do have a bit of a knee-jerk reaction in the gaming community in general, but particularly in Warhammer Combat Cards, where anytime anybody gets nerfed, people just stop playing them completely. Like you'll never see them again at all. Happened a lot with Greyfax, although that's kind of come back around. Call got a pretty significant nerf recently, and so I'm not terribly surprised that you're seeing less play with him. But yeah, I barely see him at all now, and the matches against him are so much less toxic that it's been really nice. Because I really did struggle in some of those when he was really dominant in the ladder. When I was laddering really aggressively to try to get up there, it was pretty unpleasant. So I got one, and I got an endless card. This is going up against servants. You know they're going to have the really powerful endless card, and being able to take that with just no contest at all is pretty great. Let's see what you got. See if I can get this thing. Yeah, there we go. Oh, but that's going to get wiped. Yep, and it's call, so he would have shot through the shield anyway. Oh, we got it. We got it with the barrage. Man, for a second there, I thought I was going to miss that. That's a pretty scary deck, but the Necrons have just really powerful pieces all across the board. How are we going to do this? I want that. And I also want to hit it with this. And I did kind of want Inspiring Presence on it, but we'll see if this is enough. With the Big Game Hunter, nope, not enough, but close. And it should be easy to steal that before the end of the match. Give you a little Inspiring Presence. Watch me kill it outright. That, got it. And splat. Yeah. It's a longer game, but Trazen definitely does hit differently. One of the things about him that I always find challenging in the base ladder is if you're trying to play to his rule to steal opposing cards, you spend a lot of time kind of pulling punches, being like, "Is that enough? We'll see what happens." And then a lot of the times it totally messes up your play, and it's one of those things that would be easy enough to practice enough to not do, but I tend to just kind of go for it and miscall my shots a lot. So when I've played Trazen, it hasn't been my most of whoa, and we have a crash. That probably have. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Till next time, folks. Bye.